Welcome to podcast episode 360 of Get Paid for Your Pad. And today I am here with Mr. Eric Moeller, my good friend, my partner in crime in the STR Legends Mastermind. And we have some really exciting news. We are going to announce a new training, a new webinar that we're doing on Wednesday, November 18th, called From Host to Hospitality Brand. And we're going to talk all about what that means, what you can learn. But first of all, let me introduce again Mr. Eric Moeller. Welcome to the show, Eric.
You know, I really love the way that you pronounce my last name. It just makes it sound even more exciting. Mr. Moeller. I love it. Thank you.
How do you
Thanks for having
pronounce
me
it?
back, Jasper.
Okay, cool, man. Glad you like how I pronounce your name. What's going on, man? I know you've been traveling a lot recently.
Yep.
I think you learned a lot of lessons from staying at tons of Airbnbs in the remote drive-to destinations that are really, really popular right now. What are some of the things you learned?
Yeah, so as you know, I've been kind of traveling for the last 3 months. We subletted our property out in San Diego, bought a pickup truck, and hit the road. We did about 4,500 miles in the last 3 months, which has been kind of crazy. So I'm currently down in Austin, Texas. And prior to that, I was in Idlewild. I went to Lake Tahoe, Boise, Idaho, Park City, Utah, Zion, and then back down to San Diego. But yeah, it's been interesting. We specifically searched out properties, not only in different areas that we've never been before to get outside the city and connect with nature and do a bunch of hiking and all of that, but we searched out different types of hosts. So staying with mom and pop hosts, people that just have an extra house on their property that we stayed with them, and that's the only listing that they have. We stayed with the biggest property managers and then everybody in between. And we documented the entire process, which was a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll turn that into some content one day. But yeah, we learned quite a bit. We learned that, and this is going to be some of the stuff that we cover on the training on the 18th. Is I learned that we're still, as hosts, we're still running our properties and marketing our properties as if COVID hasn't happened. Right. So there's a lot that has changed in our industry, but the guest has changed and the guest expectations have changed and their needs have changed. And most hosts, even the biggest companies that you think would be a bit more aware of what's happening with the travel industry and with the new traveler needs, they just haven't really tapped into that. And I could break all that down, but it's interesting. The extended stay, the midterm stays, it's very accessible right now for a lot of people, but hosts haven't really caught up to how to service and attract the modern day traveler. So yeah, there's a lot in there that we can unpack, but the best thing I could tell everybody, wherever you guys are hosting, make sure you have amazing internet. Everyone's working from home nowadays, and you'll be blown away with the hosts that are just trying to save $50 a month on internet. No workstations to support on that. But yeah, we can break that down, man. It's been a crazy journey learning all of this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I realized exactly what you said as well. I actually booked a local stay a couple months ago, where I actually rented a castle. And what it made me realize as well, if you're going to stay in your own area, which is what most people are doing right now, you're either going to work, which means you need the workspace, the internet that you mentioned. But if you're going on a trip for fun, like I don't want to stay at some mediocre, common type place apartment if I'm staying in my own area. If I'm not going to leave my own area, I want to stay at a unique property. I want to have a unique experience because the region isn't new to me. Right. If I go to Hong Kong or something, it's not as important that the property is unique because the place is unique to me. Right. It's like it's a whole experience to travel to that type of destination anyway. But if you're going like just a couple hours away, you want something special, right? So I think that's huge. I think what you're saying is right. I think a lot of hosts haven't realized that yet. They haven't caught up with it. But that's we can do a whole podcast on that. But
Yeah.
let's go back to the training that we're doing on
Sure.
Wednesday that you are going to present. You showed me the slides earlier. I think it's going to be a great training. I'm definitely learned quite a bit just from going through the slides. So for everybody who's interested, go to getstrlegends.com/register. The webinar is really designed for people who run 20 plus properties, but we open it up to any hosts, right? We want to provide as much valuable to the entire community. So everybody is welcome to join. It's called From Host to Hospitality Brand, how to scale your STR business in 2021 without getting burned out. That's something that we see a lot right now is operators who are working so much in their business and they're getting stressed out. And that's something that you definitely don't want to do. So that's one of the things we're going to cover. But Eric, can you walk us through what are people going to learn? Why should people be on this webinar?
Yeah. So, when we decided to put this together, this is the last training that we're doing for the year. And 2020 has been a absolutely insane year in so many different ways. And we just felt like we had to kind of compile all the knowledge and lessons and experiences we had for 2020 into just a really powerful event and training. So I'm super excited with leading this. This is something that I've been working on for a month now. So I'm excited to dive into it. And it's, to kind of give everyone some background who, if you're unaware of this, our mastermind, the STR Legends Mastermind, we really focus on working with bigger companies, bigger hosts, right? These are companies that have a minimum of 30 listings. Most have about 100 to 150 listings that are in our mastermind. And they all have the same common interest of growing a real profitable hospitality brand, right? So they're all focused. This is a long-term thing. This is not a side hustle. This is, how do I create a real company? How do I be a real CEO? How do I, really make a brand that impacts the guests that stay in our property? And then how do we scale this and to multiple different levels? We have a company in our group called Green Key. They're the largest management company out of Iceland. And they want to dominate all of Iceland. They want to be the only company in that entire country that when you go to Iceland, you stay with them, right? Massive, massive goals. And then we have some other companies in there as well that just want to really just kind of grow to 50 units and be profitable and kind of take it a bit easier, like a mom and pop brand. So working with these companies, these are 30 to 50 companies that we've been working with through 2020. We learned so many different lessons of what they are doing right now to actually scale and thrive in a time where it seems like most hosts and brands are really just kind of struggling to, I don't want to say survive, but struggling to understand how to pivot in today's new market, right? And I'm a big believer that the short-term rental industry has completely changed, and I think we're going down a different route. And it's exciting. It's opening up a massive amount of opportunities. And we're watching these companies that we're working with really capitalize on these opportunities and really put certain actions into place to not only scale the amount of listings that they have, but grow their team, hiring A players on their team to really help them grow their business and get them out of the business and working on it versus in it. And then we're also watching a lot of these companies make real money, profit, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that we noticed when COVID first hit and all these companies started going under is holy crap, we've been only focusing on revenue, right? There's a major difference between revenue and profit, right? Revenue is just cash coming in and essentially going back out, right? As much as possible. And when we wanted to make more money, we just went out and got more units and just earned more bookings. But it doesn't mean that we're actually holding on to any of the money that we're coming into our accounts, right? So this really intrigued me watching these companies from all around the country and all around the world that are doing very well at not only building their hospitality brand, but they're building their team, they're building their listings, they're figuring out how to be profitable. And then spending time with them and working with them in their over the last few months now, we realize that every company takes the same type of approach to achieve their success. And it's like, we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's unique to us. Our brand is unique to us, but it's the same ingredients that is causing these companies to be extremely successful. So for us, you know, we're learning all this. You and I are just like, we're taking in all this information and documenting it and really understanding, you know, what it takes to grow in these companies. And you and I are going to be putting all of this into action with a brand new hospitality brand in 2021, which we'll talk about later. That's another podcast within itself. But, you know, we felt like we want to share this with our community. So this is exactly what the masterclass, the webinar, is all about on the 18th. Is you know, what do we have to do as a host, regardless if you have one listing or if you have 30, 50, 60 listings? What do you have to do to build a real brand, be profitable, and then attract the right people into your business and around you as advisors? So the three pillars that we're going to be focusing on this masterclass on the 18th is profit, scale, and tribe. Right? What do we have to do to drive real profit into our company? Are we willing to scale back to scale up? And we can explain what that means. Scale. What do we have to do to actually grow our business once we're profitable? What systems, what people, what processes do we need in place? And then lastly is tribe. And this is one of the most important bullet points that most business owners in our industry miss, is the tribe, right? Who you are as a company, what's your identity, who you are as a company, who are you servicing, right? What is that ideal client and guest that you're servicing? You don't want to be the generalist that's just servicing everybody. Who's the one person that you're going after to serve? And then lastly is, who do you surround yourself with, right? And this is one common factor with the legends that joined the Legends Mastermind, is they all seek knowledge from people that have been where they want to go. They joined Legends to surround themselves with successful companies from around the world to understand how did they get to the success level that they're at now. And then what can they do in their companies to take action? Then they seek out mentors, they seek out coaches, they seek out, you know, reading books and podcasts, all of that. So we're this is all like the same type of ingredients. We're watching companies grow from Iceland to Costa Rica to Australia and everywhere in between. And that's what we're going to cover on the webinar. So that was a lot. Hopefully that was useful, but we can unpack anything you want to unpack there.
Yeah, for sure. No, you said a lot. I want to touch on a couple things. The first thing is, you mentioned skill and working on the business versus working in the business. I think that's an essential part. And what's really interesting for us, and what gives us a unique kind of position to notice all this, is we are in this mastermind, but we also have our short-term rental profit academy, where we help the smaller hosts grow their companies, right? And so we really have a good view of like, what are different size hosts doing. And you know, one thing that really struck me by looking at the legends and looking at like smaller hosts, a lot of the smaller hosts, their major challenge is that they're getting burned out. They're telling me, I don't have time to bring on new units or to think about a brand, think about who I'm serving, all that higher level stuff. They don't have the brain space to do that, because they're constantly, every day, they're in the tornado, right? They're responding to messages, they're managing their team members, you know, they're doing all this stuff, and they don't have time to think about this higher level stuff. But then I look at, for example, Prek, and I look at Gosha, who both have been on this podcast. So if you haven't listened to it, go and check it out. Prek told me that 90% of his time is spent having lunch with potential clients, with property owners. That's his job. And he runs over 100 units. Gosia told me the same thing. I'm interviewing her on the podcast, and then I ask her, like, what is your main activity these days? You know, she's also running like 70, 80 units or so. And she's like, oh, it's kind of doing this, like talking to you guys in the mastermind. And that's just like struck with me. It was like, how is it possible somebody's running 10 or 15 units is feeling overwhelmed and stressed out, and somebody who has 100 units is having lunch all day? Like, there's a disconnect there, right? And there's something that you can do to bridge that gap. And that's exactly what you were talking about. It's having the processes, the systems in place to automate your business, and to find the right people to work in your business, hiring the right people in your business. That's something that we've been focusing on, and we have some good experiences we could share with the community as well on hiring the right people, and not just hiring somebody who can do the job, but really finding the perfect person for that role. So I think that's a really, really crucial step that people have to make to really to grow a real company and become a hospitality brand versus being a host with 10 or 15 units. The second thing,
Yeah,
you want to respond to that real quick before I do?
yeah. I'm just gonna say, I mean, that was a great summary of it, right? It's like we see those two dynamics. We see the host that started making some money hosting and now is scaled to a handful of units, and this is what they're doing now, and they're doing it pretty well, but they're just freaking stressed out, and they're so in the business and they're unclear on, they have no real systems, no real processes. They haven't let up the confidence. They don't have the confidence to let go of their business yet to bring on people. There's people around everywhere that would love to work in your business, regardless of how many units you have. This is one of the sexiest industries out there. People love the short-term rental industry. You can find incredible people to come on board and work with you, but you need the systems, you need a process, you need an identity, you need to understand who you're servicing. You need to learn from people around you that have done it before to model what they're doing, right? And there's a lot of people that are just spinning their wheels, and we're finally at the point where we can recognize it, right? We have like a 30,000 foot view of the STR legends that are running hundreds of units, and then we have a 30,000 foot view of the hosts that are running 1 to 20 units, right? And we see the massive difference. Plus, we've been through this. We've been through the startup phase. We ran a ton of units, so we're familiar with that as well. And to wrap all this up, one thing that just drives me crazy, and I get it, I've been there, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. I've built a handful of different businesses. You and I have been building this business for quite some time now. And there's different levels to these games, but one thing that drives me crazy is we give out so much content and so much education out there, and very few people actually take it and put it to action, right? And the ones that do break through this stuff, and they really get to the levels that they want to get to, and get that freedom, get the financial freedom, the time freedom, understanding how to make more money and build something that's more attractive to them versus just another job where there's just no passion, no love, no excitement. And those are the people that we really want to service. And on this webinar that we're going to do on the 18th, it's like, I'm going to be driving that home. I'm going to be giving people some really powerful tips on what they can do even before the end of the year to set themselves up to really thrive in 2021. So
awesome, man. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to dive into is the branding, right? Host to hospitality brand. A couple of weeks ago, we had this conference called Host, right? A lot of people who are listening right now probably also signed up for that. And I was on a few different panels, but the most interesting discussion that I had was around branding. And, there are some pretty incredible people on those panels. Like the CEO of V-Trips, for example, was on there. A whole lot of really, really knowledgeable people. And one thing that I learned on these panels is that because of COVID, branding has become more important. And, it sounds really great, but I honestly, I didn't fully understand that until I had this conversation with these people, because the traveler has changed, right? We talked about this already. People now have higher expectations because they're traveling for a different reason. They're not just traveling for, a holiday, right? They travel because they want to get out of the city, but they want to work. They might bring their children. They might bring their dog. And they're not traveling very far. So the location isn't going to be so unique. So they're looking for something more unique, as we already touched on. But also, the concerns that people have, and I see that in my own units right now. I am communicating way more with my guests than before COVID because I have way more questions, right? Because of COVID, they have concerns. What's going on in your area? What are the restrictions? What are you doing to keep the house clean? Am I going to have to be close to a check-in person, right? How fast is your internet? Can I do Zoom calls? Everybody's doing Zoom calls right now, right? People will not stay at your place if you cannot guarantee that they can do a virtual call like we are doing right now on Zoom, right? So the expectations are higher and the concerns there are more concerns as well. And that's why brand is so important, because if I'm staying at a unit right now and the experience was absolutely perfect, the communication was perfect, it was exactly what I needed. If that is a branded unit and I'm going next week to a different city and I see that same brand, I'm immediately going to stay at that place, because that just relieves me of having to do all this research and having to ask all these questions, having these concerns and doubts. And that's why I love what we're putting on right now with this masterclass on Wednesday, is talking about how do you go from being a host with a bunch of listings on Airbnb without a clear identity, without a clear message, without a clear understanding of, who's your avatar, who you're really serving, to growing to a hospitality brand where you really understand all these things. Because I really see now how that is so important. And I don't think this is a temporary thing. I think this is this whole COVID experience, even if there's a vaccine, it has changed the way that people travel, because people now understand that there's really cool places nearby their homes. People understand they can work away from home. Some companies are not even reopening their offices, so they're going to be working completely with remote workers. So this is not something that's just going to switch back to the old situation. This is the future, essentially, right? And in order to take advantage and do well in the future and build a sustainable business, I think it's really important that you have to understand this and you have to be ahead of the curve, right? You have to really get this stuff figured out now, because otherwise you're going to be too late. The whole industry is moving this way, right? So yeah, I think that's an incredible important part.
The brand. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, branding, and that's exactly what you and I are doing in our business, the property business that we're launching in 2021. We're taking a slow approach to, we can go out and get units right now and just start generating some cash flow. We can line up some investors and start buying some property right now and just start running this. But we're taking the long approach of getting extremely clear on what is the identity, what's our identity, who are we servicing, and then who do we need around us to actually give us some guidance on building our brand, right? And it's all about brand. It's all about once we get clear on who we are and who we want to serve, all the properties and the way that we serve this gets so clear, and those are the only people that you're talking to, right? So, like, for example, Samantha and I have been traveling for the last 3 months again, right? And one of the biggest things that I'm noticing around brand, and this is outside the STR space, but Samantha runs a couple of businesses as well, and looks for the same stuff that we need. We need a workstation. We need a fully stocked kitchen because we're not going out to restaurants. We have to cook at home. And if we're cooking at home, we want everything there to be able to make a full meal and create an experience for ourselves, right? That's a huge, huge thing right now, where people are creating experiences for themselves and their family in the properties, in the short-term rentals, because restaurants are a bit tough to go out to. So there's a handful of things that she looks for in every single property we book. But the number one thing that she needs is a Whole Foods 10 minutes from the house. That's a must, right? Like, that's part of her thing, right? And now we're spending a lot of time at Whole Foods because we're going out and cooking all the time and, all that stuff. And I'm realizing that even Whole Foods, and I'm tying this back to the brand concept here, why this is so important. During the last year or so, Whole Foods has exploded. Their growth is just through the roof. And we're still hearing, like, every time I ask people or I tell people I go to strictly Whole Foods to shop, and I know that's a privilege and it's incredible there, and it's very expensive there. what I'm realizing is like Whole Foods, they only speak to their ideal clientele. They only speak to the Samanthas of the world that want clean food, the best food. They don't care what the price is. They want the best type of food. And it's an identity that they're attached to where no matter where they travel, they have to be near a Whole Foods. They're attached to that identity. And now typically Whole Foods are in a certain type of market, right? So now we're looking for a certain type of property in a certain type of market so we can get to Whole Foods. I know it sounds kind of funny, but the branding side is one of the most important things, I think, and wrapping this back for our industry to really dial in is it doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter that there's a million different other people out there that can just buy food. Why not just, sell any type of food to anybody, right? That's not the point. The point is that we want to service and talk to the people that we only want to service the people that that attach to our brand identity, identify with our brand, right? And there's a couple of companies out there in our space that are doing this really well, but most hosts and most brands don't do this. They don't focus on that. They just focus on getting listings and running it and making money. But then they're constantly looking for that guest to come into their property, right? Versus building a brand equity and brand awareness to where clients and guests constantly come back to you and your properties, right? So this is something that you and I have spent a lot of time studying and really working with all the other brands in Legends. And this is something that we're going to show to the world of like rolling this out in our own brand next year, which I'm super excited about. But the fundamentals of all of this, we're going to dive into on this training on the 18th of Tribe, and we're calling it Tribe because it's all about people at the end of the day, who we are, who we're servicing, and then who are we learning from, right? So it's all about people. Yeah, brand is everything moving forward.
It's so funny that you mentioned Whole Foods because I'm a Whole Foods guy as well. Last time I went to Texas actually earlier this year. Just before COVID, just before our event in Cartagena, actually. And I stayed with a buddy of mine who just lost somebody. So I kind of flew over to support. And we stayed at a hotel. And the main reason that we stayed at that particular hotel was because there was a Whole Foods in walking distance. All right. So I totally get your girlfriend, Samantha. I'm the same way. I know they have all those veggies that I want to eat. I know they have that salad bar. So whatever happens, I can always just walk to the salad bar, get this healthy food. And also on top of that, they have keto cups. Have you ever had a keto cup?
Yeah. You introduced those to me. Those are awesome. But it's the identity, right? You understand Whole Foods objective. You understand the fundamentals of who they are and their core values and why they even exist. So we're willing to pay extra money for clean food, and we're willing to stay in markets and rent houses so we can shop at this place because we feel connected to this identity, right? So if you can, as hosts, and this is where I'm really like diving home on this, it's like, even if you have one property, you can still develop that brand. If you have one listing, you can still develop that brand to where if you have the Samanthas and the Jaspers and the Erics of the world that want to identify and go to the Whole Foods and they're looking for a certain property that they can attach to that knows that, hey, I'm servicing the individual that needs to work from home. So here's a dedicated real workstation. Here's a screenshot of the best internet that we can buy, right, in the marketplace. This is our speeds. Also, the kitchen is fully stocked, right? We have everything that you possibly need to never have to leave this house again, right? You can cook everything in this house. On top of that, we have extra supplies for you, right? Like every property I've gone to that I've rented for 4 to 6 weeks, they give you like 1 roll of toilet paper and like 2 towels, and like they still stock it as if you're there for a weekend. And it's driving me crazy, right? So it's like, and going back to your point of like the messaging with the guests, that's where the brand is really solidified with your properties, is how you communicate with your guests from the moment they find your property to the moment they check out and months later down the road, right? And you have to, that's the most important thing right now, is that communication and connection with your guests, right? To build that brand and build that brand equity. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We're going to dive into all of that on the 18th. It's going to be powerful. I'm excited. And, maybe we'll create some type of challenge to where, people who are on the training actually go through and take action and then share with us their brand identity, their brand vision. I think that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys are going to learn a lot. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And, you mentioned one really good point, which is you don't have to run 150 units to develop a brand. Because that's one thing, a lot of questions I get from smaller hosts, they're saying like, well, a brand is something for like a multi-million-dollar company. I'm just a small host. They don't think that, they don't associate building a brand with having something small going on. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is one of the first things I learned when I started hosting in 2012. When I started, I just put my listing on there and I just, turned it on, and, I was getting bookings and it was going pretty well. But at some point I realized that my apartment was perfect for groups that consisted of 2 couples. And the reason for that was just because my bedrooms were on opposite sides of the apartment. And that created a lot of privacy for, if you don't necessarily hear what's going on in the other bedroom. So I never even thought about that. But one of my guests wrote in the review, they wrote, "This apartment was perfect for us because the apartment was laid out in a way that we, both of the couples had privacy." So that really hit home. And I was like, wow, maybe I should cater specifically to those groups. Right. So I changed my title to Perfect Couples Getaway. Right. And then I started creating the whole listing around, what does a group of 2 couples need? Right. Like you said, they need more towels. Right. They need more of everything. Right. So, and also, like, what kind of activities are they going to do? They're probably not going to party till like 5 a.m. at a local club. They're more likely to go to a museum or do something romantic, right? So I catered the whole experience around that. And at some point, I was almost making double the amount of money by focusing specifically on those groups. And, that doesn't mean that I wasn't getting other people, right? I think that's something that people get confused with as well. Just because you're speaking to a specific avatar, to a specific demographic, or whatever the audience is that you're trying to attract, it doesn't mean that other people are not going to be interested in staying at your place. What it means is you make it really clear that who is your unit perfect. And I think that's really important to understand, is that is building a brand. Just changing the title and changing the communication, changing the amenities and highlighting certain aspects, that is essentially creating a brand. You don't have to, spend $10,000 on a designer and create like fancy logos and everything. It's every single host, even if you have a single room that you're renting out, these are things that are important to think about.
Yeah, I agree. And, to your point too, it's just because Whole Foods targets a certain type of demographic to come in and buy their high-end products and foods, doesn't mean that the average Joe doesn't stop in and buy foods there as well, right? Who typically shops down the road at a regular grocery store, right? Doesn't mean that person is not buying and being part of that store, but it's still a identity and a brand that's tailored towards a type of person, right? So you can build that. I was out to, I had a meeting yesterday with a big real estate investor couple out here in Austin. And they have a family lake house in the middle of Texas, about 2 hours from Austin, that they now want to turn into a Airbnb, their first Airbnb. And they want to do that because it's right outside a national park. It sits on a lake. It has no internet in that area. There's just no internet. So they want to literally cater to families that are looking to disconnect and travel and be together. It's a big house and it's big kitchen, all that stuff, who want to disconnect and then reconnect with nature, right, with their family. And I was like, that's your brand. That's exactly what you're developing. So as she starts developing this out, it's all catering towards that avatar, right? Doesn't mean that a couple of friends can't go out there and rent the place, but this is who they're targeting. and then that's going to be the brand that they build. So, but yeah, we'll get into all this, man. We're going to go deep on this. This is something I'm truly, obviously passionate about and just excited about. I look at it as art. It's like, how can you create something that attracts and attracts someone to your properties and your brand, and then create an experience for them, right? So we're going to dive into that, and then we're also going to dive into some other stuff too. So those are the 3 pillars, but we also have some awesome bonuses that we're going to share with everyone, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, we got some awesome bonuses. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And by the way, I love the example that you mentioned, because that's really turning your weakness into strength, right? If you have weak internet, then you just take it away. I mean, there's nothing worse than weak internet. Like, no internet is way better than weak internet.
That's right.
Just take the internet away and market it as a disconnection experience, right?
Yeah. So for that too, there's a host out of Boise, Idaho. Check her out on Instagram. Her name is Christy Wolf. Most people might know her. She's pretty famous in the Airbnb world. She, when we were in Boise, we had dinner with her, and she actually gifted us a night at her potato hotel. So Christy builds these incredible Airbnbs. She only lists on Airbnb, and she has these incredible properties all over the country. She built a potato hotel out of a gigantic potato. It was kind of crazy. And then she has like a lookout tower. She has a hobbit hole. She just bought a shipwrecked house on a lake. So really interesting theme properties. But what she was saying is, like, all the areas that she buys and builds out these unique properties, her avatar that she goes after are couples. So it only sleeps 2 people, only a couple. There's no internet in any of the properties, because she wants them to experience the property and experience the land and nature of where the property's at. Some of the properties don't even have electric in it, which is hilarious. But she's booked out. Like the potato that we're at, which is just funny. I think on Instagram, it's the Big Idaho Potato, or the Idaho Potato Hotel, something like that. Just look up Christy Wolf. Her properties are booked out for 6 months in advance, right? So this is, again, understanding who you're targeting and who you want to target and having fun with it. And then using to your point, your weaknesses to your benefit. Because when we were at this hotel, it was awesome. We're hanging out on a farm, looking at the stars. We're on our phones, and we loved it. We disconnected. And and she built an incredible business around that. So check her out. She's an ideal host to follow, who built a brand, focuses on a certain avatar, and then attracts the world to her listings. It's pretty.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny too that we're preaching like you gotta have fast internet, but you could also have no internet, just not in between, right? You gotta go for either way. You gotta make a decision. Cool, man. Let's touch on those bonuses, because we got some pretty cool bonuses. So I wanna make sure we cover that.
Yeah. So again, this is our last training for the year. So we're trying to, it's gonna be pretty impactful. So not only are we gonna share what we're learning by working with some of the top short-term rental brands from around the world, and what we're putting into action for our own company, but also we're gonna be giving everyone who shows up. We know it's a challenging time. We know that there's a lot of trainings. There's a lot of, just a lot on the internet that could be grabbing your attention. So what we'd love to do is for people who show up and just play all out, and show up and just, you're into this training, you're taking notes, you're trying to figure out how to grow your business, trying to figure out how to take what we're teaching and put it to action. If you're focused with us, we'd like to reward that, right? And this is what we do in our trainings and our mastermind and everything else. So we have 2 powerful bonuses that we're going to be giving away to everyone who shows up. The number one is, and I just love this. This is something that one of our legend mentors showed us a couple of weeks ago, and we rolled this out to our legends. The first bonus that we're gonna teach you guys on is how you can make $5,000 to $10,000 in 10 minutes or less on Airbnb. So I'll say that again, because I know that sounds crazy. how you can make $5,000 to $10,000 in 10 minutes or less on Airbnb. We're calling this bonus Airbnb Lost Cash. So if you're hosting on Airbnb, specifically on Airbnb, if you're hosting on Airbnb for a minimum of 3 months or more, there's a high possibility that there is missing cash that Airbnb is holding onto that you can locate right now and get into your bank account in about 10 minutes. We rolled this out to our legends, and we're going to show this to you guys. And there was legends that, you know, on the call with us are just like freaking out because they just found $5,000 sitting in their Airbnb account that they just transferred over to their bank account. You know, one found 8,000, someone found 10,000, someone found $1,200, right? So it's like pretty incredible. We're going to share with you guys how you can do that, and that's going to be awesome. And then lastly is for everyone who stays all the way to the end of the training, and once we get through all the details and everything that we have in this training, we're going to share with you guys how you can gain access to a upcoming live training that we're doing, private training that we're doing, what we're calling Revenue Management Secrets. So this is with a CEO of a short-term rental company that has raised over $100 million for his company, has scaled his property business throughout the whole country, but then also has mastered how to drive revenue in his business and manage revenue on a high scale. This is something that he's never done before. He hasn't ever done a training like this before. And one thing that we worked out with him is that it was going to be private. It was going to be to kind of invite only and people that come through our training. Because we know that if you guys make it through this training and you're focused and you take action, that you're serious. You're serious about your business. You're serious about understanding how to be profitable. You're serious about how to scale, all of that. So he really only wants to do this and really serve people that are going to listen and put it to action. And it's going to be awesome. So we got two awesome bonuses that we're going to give away. So Airbnb Lost Cash, how to make $5,000 to $10,000 in 10 minutes or less on Airbnb. And then Revenue Management Secrets with $100 million short-term rental CEO.
Awesome, yeah, and it does sound crazy, but it did happen. So I'm super excited, man. I'm super excited about that private training. I'm really looking forward to that. So for everybody who, if you want to be on this webinar, if you want to be part of this, go to strlegends.com/register. It's a free masterclass. So, but we do have limited seats, right? So we already have quite a few people who signed up, as you can imagine. So yeah, so go ahead, sign up Wednesday, 18th of November at 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we're doing the training. Go ahead, sign up at strlegends.com/register. And if you stay to the end, then you'll get these awesome bonuses that Eric touched on.
That's right.
Hey, dude. Well, this was fun. You haven't been on the podcast for a while, so it's cool to get some
working.
From you.
Been working, been grinding.
Yeah,
it's good to be back, and yeah, we'll do more of these. I know you've been doing quite a bit of interviews as well, and the podcast is growing, which is awesome to see. And I think I just have one to ask for everybody. Obviously, everyone who is inspired by what we just talked about, just go over to the website, strlegends.com/register, and register for that event. You should be on that. It's really designed for companies, 20 listings or more. But again, it's open for everybody. So if you're just getting started, still sign up, still show up. The stuff that we're teaching, you're going to implement. And then also, please share this podcast. If you know anybody that you think should be on this training, share this podcast with them. We would love to impact as many hosts from around the world as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we've put a lot of time into this. Right, we started preparing for this masterclass about a month ago to really make sure that we put like the most important lessons from the masterminds, everything that we learned into this. So that's why we opened it up to everybody, even though it's really designed for the people that want to grow and scale their business. So go ahead, tell your friends, anybody who's an Airbnb host, let them know about the webinar. It's free to sign up before we run out of seats, because we do have a limit on what we can handle on the webinar. So Eric, thanks for joining me, man. This is great chatting. we can probably go on for a few hours, but we're going to wrap it up. So, so yeah, thank you, Eric. And thanks for the listeners. And of course, next week, there'll be another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. See you next time.
Boom. Thanks, guys.